ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। पवित्रं चरितं यस्याः पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै देव्यै नमो नमः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ॐ नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ॐ ऐं स्वामी विवेकानन्दाय नमः। ॐ स्वामी विवेकानन्दाय नमः। नमो नमः। Namaskarams to all of you, to our Lakshmi Didi, Sudhakar and other colleagues in the Vivekananda Vedic Vision Foundation, Kodungalur. We had just crossed in the last month the English birthday of Swami Vivekananda, celebrated as National Youth Day. And now next week we are going to celebrate the Indian birthday of Swami Vivekananda on 5th February. So remembering our hero twice is something, a great blessing which he has conferred on us, and reminding us again and again is one of the essential things in life. Because like computer, in human being also memory failure is one of the important causes for ourselves not getting proper transformation. Things do not get etched in our mind strongly, and therefore a reminder is essential. And that is a technique government is adopting. Moment you switch on your mobile, the corona announcement comes. In spite of the announcement, we keep on forgetting. So forgetfulness or memory failure is one of the important things to be tackled or taken care of in our life. So Indian sages have been sufficiently clever and intelligent enough to invest us with festival every month, so that we are forced to remember God and other spiritual things which are necessary for the welfare of our life, both individually as well as collectively. So Vivekananda's birthday we will be celebrating twice, both as per the English birthday date and also the Indian Tithi, Nakshatra and Rashi basis. Now we have gathered here for the last few days to meditate on Swamiji, and last I think a week or more we have been brooding over the topic of divine touch. Just like one should not have disregard, dislike or disrespect for scientific way of things or scientific outlook or a rational way of thinking, I feel one also should not have any disregard, disgust or develop an allergy for things that are spiritual, religious, though it may not be suiting to our logic or it may not be satisfying our logic. Because there are things which are mystical, those things which are mystical and beyond the purview of our perception, one should not develop a peculiar attitude towards it. Because once we develop the power of perception and the power of understanding, we will find that those things, very spiritual things or religious, which we thought to be meaningless or something to be ridiculed or not to be taken up seriously, will all assume great meaning and significance in our life. So the word divine, one should not be put off by the word divine and question why we should not use the word human. As we tread the different paths of life, we find there are two things in our life, rather three things: the divine, the human, and the beastly or the animal. We have classified into two broad categories of human and divine, because in human itself we find the beast or the animal is hidden. When the human becomes dynamic, the animal or the beast becomes hushed into silence. And when the animal becomes dynamic, the human becomes dormant. So the two personalities which are intermingling in our own personality, they exhibit themselves now and then through our actions, thoughts, and words. And there is a third dimension which is divine, and this divine is present and is a background for both human as well as the animal and the beastly instinct of ours. Divine is the basis in which all the things in this world or universe, they spring from or spring forth from that divine source. So we have taken that divine word as an all-inclusive word, not necessarily to create a religious feeling or order or a religious smell around our way of talking or our way of thinking. Divine means something which is all-inclusive, all-comprehensive, and is infinite in nature. Where human is always individualistic, confined to one's own self, and is almost selfish in all the actions and our approaches of life, the divine sets us free from the limited vision or the limited approach to life. Divine essentially is our original and innate being, so all our efforts, knowingly or unknowingly, are making us tend towards that goal. Even the far-fetched, selfish attempts or exercises which we are involving or indulging in, they all also, if it can be stretched to the maximum limit, it will take us to the divine. For example, Alexander wanted to conquer the whole world. So whole world when conquered, unless you have the oneness in you, you cannot conquer the world. So this oneness is what we call as divine. That which eliminates the boundaries and creates a feeling, a sense of being one with everything that we are living with. So divine means that one which is indivisible, whereas human is divisible and is individual. So divine is indivisible and other thing is the individual. We are all caught in the boundaries of individuality. The whole effort of human life, every pursuit in the society, in every field, ultimately if it is stretched to its highest limit, will lead us to indivisibility, either it is in the form of music or in the art or in science. Even science is always tending towards the oneness. So that is the beauty of this approach. By using the word divine, we cover everything in life. So one can be freed from the thraldom of selfishness. So the divine touch includes in itself every touch which a human life can conceive of. Medical touch, motherly touch, the touch of compassion, the touch of sympathy, like hundreds of touches which we experience in our human life. All this can be included and put inside the word divine touch. So this divine touch is an all-inclusive word which comprises in itself hundreds of emotions which we conceive of and exhibit in our life, and which ultimately tends for the welfare and goodness of a human being, both individually for himself as well as collectively for the society or nation. So divine touch which Swami Vivekananda got has percolated through the different stages of his life and different aspects of his personality, and every word, every thought, every action he did had this beautiful fragrance of this oneness. Everywhere you will find Swami Vivekananda's ideas trying to unify people. There are hundreds of forces in this world now trying to create a divisiveness in the name of religion, in the name of politics, in the name of culture, in the name of race, in the name of the color of our skin. So where divisive forces are constantly working to set human beings apart and break them into different parts, making one part clash with other, Ramakrishna Vivekananda they come as one of the most formidable unifying force in this world. That is the beauty. The divine unifies. In the divine, you don't find any differences. Whereas the human acts as a divisive force, the divine acts as a unifying force. And that is where the acme of spiritual experience in the form of Advaita Vedanta brings greatest glory and one of the most heavenly fragrance into our day-to-day life. The feeling of oneness. A house which wants to experience a supreme joy must have a wonderful lady in the form of mother in the house, and that mother is a beautiful symbol of oneness. She feels one with the whole family. So is an institutional head, whether it's in the school or in the office or in any of the companies or even in the party. If that person is able to bring up the feeling of oneness in himself and is able to tie the whole people under him through that one single thread of oneness in the form of human love or through the common vision, then that becomes a source for success in every aspect of our life. So the individual nature constantly trying to be divisive because of asserting its individuality through its ego has got the background of divine, which is highly essential for collective total progress. And that was one of the reasons that Indian rishis who saw the plurality, the variety in this world, when they wanted to attain peace, they found out that if one can sight or can have a look at the unity behind the variety, that man, they say, tasya ko shokaha ko ka mohaha. He has no moha illusion and no shoka. He has crossed the moha illusion or delusion, and shoka, the one who sees unity in all this variety. As a small child, I remember that after I came from the school, myself, my brothers and sisters, we all would come and just jump into the kitchen and have some refreshments from mother. So in those days, there was a type of biscuits. It was called doll biscuits. Different animals will be in the form of dolls. Elephant, rat, parrot, dog, cat. These are all called doll biscuits. Elephants in the form of doll, and they were all made in the form of biscuits. So invariably, as a small boy thinking that I am very intelligent, I always used to be adamant to get elephant biscuit. I will always say, I want elephant biscuit. Let the rat and cat go to sisters and brothers. But slowly as I progress in my life, as maturity came upon me, I found that all the biscuits were of the same size. Even cat was also of 2 inches big size, and elephant also was of the same size. The mold was the same, but in my imagination, I thought elephant is a bigger animal. Therefore, the elephant biscuit also will be big. It never struck the brain as when I was a child that the biscuit is of the same size. Only the animal is elephant, other is rat and cat. But I found rat also was as big as the elephant, as a biscuit. So in the human life also, we find we are all caught in this illusion of the name and form, and therefore we think what we are in or where we belong to, that alone is a supreme. It is not. When we get this collective consciousness through the feeling of oneness, that all are biscuits after all, then the variations, the variety vanishes, and we get a glimpse or perception of the underlying unity, that whatever may be the biscuit, the sizes are same, and the main element in the biscuit is wheat, godamba. Wheat grain is the very essence. Once we sight the wheat and understand that it is a name is rat or cat, all the biscuits are of the same size. It is not that elephant biscuit is 6 inches tall, wide and fat, and a cat or rat is 1 inch small. No, not at all. But the mind, when it is immatured and doesn't rise to the higher level of perception, caught within the illusory effect, it always thinks that what it holds on, that alone is correct, and therefore we disagree. Why we disagree is we are all caught in our own individualistic perception. Once we cross the individuality and step into the realm of indivisibility, indivisibility is the source of oneness, where we will find that all are one, and getting a glimpse of that oneness. Nanatve ekatvam, how they express in the Sanskrit that vividhatame ekatvata ekatha. So that is the thread that is running through our whole country. Hundreds of languages, hundreds of castes, hundreds of cultures, hundreds of so many different things. But as Indians, we are one. That is the beauty, the transcendental touch of Advaita Vedanta which Swami Vivekananda got, which our rishis have expressed through Vedanta. Again and again, Shankaracharya, Guru Nanak, Sai Baba, Shirdi Sai Baba, Chanakya, Guru Gobind Singh, and Swami Vivekananda, Sri Krishna, and all the saints and sages, they all wanted to tie India into that one sutra, that India is one, with the feeling of oneness, Advaita Vedanta. We are one. Wheat is one, cat, rat, dog, elephants are all different shapes and sizes. Similarly, in spite of all the differences in our language, caste, culture, place, complexion and everything, we are one as indivisible soul expressing itself as crores and crores of Indians. The external peripheral differences are immaterial. What really matters is the spirit, the one which is inside. But we have taken matter to be a very serious thing, and therefore we are all quarreling over matters. And Swami Vivekananda wanted this Advaita Vedanta to be preached to the whole world. And he says this is the special gem, the diamond of Indian spiritual quest, the Everest of Indian spiritual quest. And you throw this beautiful gem into the world and the world will clamor after it. And based on this Advaita Vedanta, where he speaks about this in his famous lecture, Can Vedanta Be a Future Religion? He says how to bring humanity under one umbrella. Though it may be difficult, theoretically, at least logically, verbally, the idea can be conceived that we are one by giving an idea of the oneness perception which the rishis had. This was one beautiful, masterly, genius stroke that Swami Vivekananda applied when we Indians were slaves. And that is how he brought this oneness of Advaita Vedanta to India through this magic formula, love India. Why? Because I am an Indian, whole India belongs to me. All Indians are nothing but myself. Just as I stand in front of hundreds of mirrors, my own image is reflected. All Indians are a reflection of my own spirit, my own Atman, the light, the self, the source within. Why not I feel one with this country? This is my country, this is my motherland. If that oneness can come into the day-to-day activities, then India doesn't require judicial power to guide and control India. Citizens themselves, through this perception of oneness, will try to modify and discipline and regulate their life, which will lead to the collective transformation and progress of the whole country. This is a very beautiful idea. Swami Vivekananda wanted that every mother to her child, as a cradle song, should Vedanta Nitya Shuddha Mukta Satya Swarupoham Niranjanosi Nityosi Shuddhosi. I am that infinite spirit. So the idea of oneness, once it comes, then it percolates through the different aspects and different parts of our personality, and the expression will be again trying to unify everybody. And that is what is happening in the lives of all sages, whether it is Kabir or somebody else. If there is a Muslim or a Hindu, Kabir doesn't bother. Shirdi Sai Baba doesn't bother whether you are a Hindu or a Muslim. So was Guru Gobind Singh, so was Guru Nanak, so was Shankaracharya, so was Swami Vivekananda. So this touch of oneness Vivekananda got when he was in the Saptarishi Mandala. through Sachidananda, which was divine. Divine means one without a second. So this touch we found percolated through all the different stages of Swami Vivekananda's life, and it exuded itself in a wonderful fragrance of Advaita Vedanta through his life messages and through the incidents of his life. Last 2 weeks, we have been seeing some of the incidents where this oneness exuded itself through the life incidents of Swami Vivekananda. Today we shall take up 2 or 3 incidents where we can see the beautiful aspect of this oneness again and again coming and blossoming in the life incidents of Swami Vivekananda. Last time we saw how this idea of oneness was taught by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa to Swami Vivekananda. In the initial stages, unable to grasp the significance or the tremendous height at which this truth is being spoken, Vivekananda and his friend Hazara came out laughing at the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, telling, "Oh, we are all one. The jug is myself, the pot is myself, the cot is myself, everything is myself." Then Sri Ramakrishna comes and just touches the chest of Narendra. Instantly a magical transformation takes place, and the whole thing starts dissolving into oneness, and very significant and indescribable infinite void in which Swami Vivekananda himself was merging and he was lost. So individuality merged into indivisibility, and then for few days together he was in the bliss. It's a tremendous uncontrollable bliss, the joy of feeling one with the whole universe. This is a marvelous experience, a unprecedented gift from our Bharatavarsha, Indian rishis to the world, and Kerala, the land of Adi Shankaracharya, who was the master teacher of Advaita Vedanta. He wanted this to exhibit itself in different aspects of our life. This is one of the solutions, especially for Kerala, which was called as lunatic asylum by Swami Vivekananda. The feeling of Advaita, whether you belong to a higher caste man or you belong to a lower caste man, we are one. All of us are untouchables. As spirit, the God, we are all untouchables. And Corona has come and told that you cannot touch each other. Keep a social distance of 3 feet. All of you are untouchable now. Not only untouchable, you should not cough or sneeze nearby. Keep long distance from each other, because all of us have become untouchable. But really, God alone is untouchable, because there is no second person to touch him. So this untouchability has got a beautiful solution, a cure, a medicine in this oneness, which is one of the best remedy for the evil of individuality, caste discrimination. We discriminate based not only on caste. Even in United States, we find the color discrimination is there, the racial discrimination is there. Why do we discriminate? Because we have not had the glimpse or the idea of oneness of things. Just like myself as a young boy was foolishly fighting for elephant biscuits, which when I became little elder, I had to laugh at myself, how stupid of me, because the elephant biscuit was weighing 20 grams and the cat biscuit and rat biscuits were also weighing 20 grams. Why did I behave in such a stupid way? So as illumination dawns on us for that, Vivekananda wanted to preach the idea of Advaita Vedanta, oneness. He says, moment you preach Advaita Vedanta and people are able to get a glimpse of it, fear vanishes from the mind. This is a tremendous assertion, that there is no second man other than me. What am I to be afraid of? Fear is the cause of all evil in the society, Vivekananda says. So we are all afraid of each other because we think we are all separate. Though it may not be impressive at the practical level, but people who have experienced it, they have given a practical demonstration in this life, that once you experience this oneness, even at the social level, the so-called physical level of our life, tremendous transformation and change can come upon us and as well as upon the society. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he first put this Advaita Vedanta teaching to Swami Vivekananda, so that in future it was Vivekananda who is supposed to take this marvelous gift of India to the western horizon, western hemisphere. Vivekananda first was in a boyish nature. He started laughing at this oneness, how it can be one. and the divine touch of Sri Ramakrishna, the real experience which volumes and volumes of a book cannot do, one touch, that is the supreme touch of divine grace of the Master, the divine touch, Vivekananda found his consciousness undergoing an unprecedented transformation, what he had never even thought of in dream. The Advaita Vedanta, the oneness, stood staring at him. The food is himself, the man who is serving the food is himself, the one who is going to eat the food, everything is himself, the one without a second. That put the whole mind, the personality, the body of Swami Vivekananda in a state of unspeakable joy and rest. This was the touch of divine giving to him the experience of Advaita Vedanta. Slowly after that, as Sri Ramakrishna started molding the life of Narendranath, and Swami Vivekananda, taking up the instruction of his guru, started practicing this, at a particular stage, realizing that he and the whole universe is one, and that he is able to give this knowledge of oneness to another, wanted to put this knowledge into test to verify scientifically whether this can happen really in our day-to-day life. So one day during the Shivratri time, when Sri Ramakrishna and others were having a wonderful satsang, Swami Vivekananda, as is the habit in the Shivratri time with all people, they sit for meditation, japa and bhajans at the evening hours of Shivratri, and whole night they go on doing the spiritual sadhana in the form of japam, archana, abhishekam to Shivalinga, and then meditating like Shiva himself. On that Shivratri day, Swami Vivekananda suddenly found that an extraordinary experience of oneness with the whole universe has arisen him due to the intense sadhana which he has done as per the instructions of Swami Vivekananda. And especially on that day of Shivratri, Swami Vivekananda, whose mind was really bent on logical reasoning and rigorous inquiry and scientific experimentation, wanted to really put this into test. And therefore, he told one of his friends to touch brother disciples, to touch him as he started meditating. Slowly, Swami Vivekananda entered into deep state of meditation, and as instructed, one of his brother disciple, Kali Prasad, who later on became Swami Abhedananda, who spread the Vedanta in the Western countries, slowly kept his hand on the knee of Swami Vivekananda. Vivekananda was deeply drowned in the meditation. This Swami Abhedananda, who was a brother disciple of Swami Vivekananda, as he touched Swami Vivekananda on his knees, suddenly he finds a terrific flow of current, like an electric power, is entering inside his own body. And the whole hands, it started vibrating. Just as you touch electric current, the hands will start vibrating and you take it out. The hand of Swami Abhedananda started vibrating as if some tremendous power is going inside him. And in spite of his resistance, he could not stop his hand from moving or vibrating. Somebody asked, was the vibration artificially done by you or it really happened? And Abhedananda says, in spite of my severe efforts, I could not stop my hand from shivering under the electrifying effect of Swami Vivekananda's divine touch. Not Vivekananda touched him, but he touched Swami Vivekananda, who had become divine in the sense, due to this intense meditation, he found himself identified with the whole world, and that generated a tremendous uncontrollable power. And after touching Swami Vivekananda, Swami Abhedananda also entered into a deep meditation which others have never seen him in his life till that time. So Swami Vivekananda found that he is able to impart this feeling of oneness. That was one of the secrets which I had previously told, that when he told, dear sisters and brothers of America, externally those are all mere English words, but internally it was not words, it was a tremendous feeling of oneness conveyed through those words, sisters and brothers of America. Otherwise, what is there in those few words to make people go mad after him and clap for full 2 minutes? As Vivekananda told, there was a deafening applause of full 2 minutes. So this oneness, which Swami Vivekananda used to call as L-O-V-E, love. It says, love opens the most impossible gates. Once when he was asked to define Sri Ramakrishna, and someone asked, was Sri Ramakrishna loving you? Vivekananda told, no, Sri Ramakrishna was not loving. He was capital L-O-V-E. That means Sri Ramakrishna never made an effort to love, like jasmine never makes an effort to emit fragrance. The full moon doesn't make an effort to catch our attention. We naturally get attracted because of the glory and the glow of full moon. So Sri Ramakrishna's very essence and nature, because he felt oneness with the whole universe, the love exuded from himself like fragrance exuding itself from the sandalwood. He never made any effort to love people. In another place, Swami Vivekananda says, people who love me, they do not know that what they are loving is the Ramakrishna part of me, not me. The Ramakrishna part is the Advaita part which felt itself one with the whole world. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna, there is a very beautiful, striking incident which is really a miraculous expression of this oneness. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his own room on the banks of Ganges at Dakshineshwar. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna shouted in great pain, "Ho, ho, somebody has beaten me." And his nephew, Hriday, comes and he is asking, "Mama, who has beaten you?" And Sri Ramakrishna shows his back and 5 fingers were there. The print of 5 fingers were there. And Sri Ramakrishna showed, look there, 2 people are fighting in the boat on the Ganges. One man has given a slap on the back of another man. That beating, the slap has come and fallen on my body. I felt one with the whole universe. This is tremendous, very, very illogical, and it's a highly superstitious from the scientific point of view, because science cannot dare to enter into these areas of spirituality. Child as it is such spirit science, how it can understand and perceive this, because it is beyond the purview of science perception. But Sri Ramakrishna demonstrated it. Indian spiritual giants have demonstrated this again and again. And another day, Sri Ramakrishna saw somebody walking on the newly grown grass, and Sri Ramakrishna shouted, "Hey, ask him not to walk on the grass," as if somebody is treading and trampling on my chest. I am unable to bear the pain. Ask him to come out of that grass. How are you going to explain this? And Swami Vivekananda, who ridiculed, laughed and mocked at it, ultimately got himself defeated in front of the demonstrative evidence of Ramakrishna's spiritual experiences and spiritual enactments. So here, this feeling of oneness, we may not become a great saint or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, we need not become also, but once we grasp and understand that there is something truth behind it, that there is oneness, and this oneness has got great goodness behind it. It is not that this oneness is creating harm or evil or struggle or any pain or misery to others. On the contrary, it eliminates everything that is negative, everything that is evil in our life. So here Vivekananda experimented, because he was supposed to give this knowledge. During those days, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna predicted that will become a world prophet, will preach this Vedanta, Jagat ke Dag Deve, he will give a call to the whole world. Nobody believed. So the preparation of Sri Ramakrishna and the acceptance of Swami Vivekananda undergoing those spiritual disciplines verified in a very, very beautiful, practical and sensible way. And Vivekananda found that the feeling of oneness is correct. Swami Abhedananda felt that tremendous current is coming from Vivekananda, and he is feeling one with the whole world. So this event, after it was over, somebody went and narrated to Sri Ramakrishna that Narendranath and Swami Abhedananda Kaliprasad, they had this incident. Sri Ramakrishna became very grave and remarked, "Ask Naren not to do all these things. Let him gather the strength. Let him not spend the energy now itself before gathering and pooling this Advaita Vedanta Shakti." After that, Swami Vivekananda understood that this energy is for the regeneration of the whole of India. And it was this oneness, love India, the magic formula had behind this sense of oneness. And that is why when Swami Vivekananda came and thundered from Colombo to Almora, the whole India stood one with him. I had read the book by British CID report on Swami Vivekananda and Subhash Chandra Bose. There they have made a clear mention of this, and this one line stands in my memory, that when Vivekananda came to India, we have to make 10 times more police bandobast than we normally do for when Queen Victoria used to come to India. And we found the whole nation rose as one single individual to welcome Vivekananda. See, this is something tremendous. It has never happened in our country. The whole nation rising, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, all rose and became one at that time. Afterwards, due to political reasons and Britishers' divide and rule policy, the religious split came. But Vivekananda brought that sense of oneness, belonging to this India, belonging to this country. And Vivekananda in those days also has mentioned that this is one of the secret of Japanese success. Belonging to the country. We don't have a sense of belonging. Why? Because we feel everybody is an alien. Even our own motherland is an alien. And previously we were criticizing and complaining Britishers have looted India, Mughals have looted India. Now we Indians, free Indians, are looting India. Because we don't feel belonging. The sense of belonging has not blossomed or flowered in our heart. So Advaita Vedanta is to make that feeling of oneness. So that is why if you read Vivekananda, you will develop this noble sense of belonging to this country. In our house, we should feel we belong to the house. Take care of the parents who have given birth to us, educated us, brought us up. If you don't have a feeling of belonging to the house, then parents will have to go to old age home as it is happening in modern days. Why are we not having the sense of belonging? Because we are not able to come to that civilized, elite, educated level of perception that we are all one. It is one. When flood comes, we become one. When Pakistan attacks, we become one, is it not? When somebody attacks enemy country, then we become one. When cricket is going on, then we become one. But after the things are over, we are all separate. So what unites us momentary, that can be made as a permanent sensibility, a permanent character of aspect of our character, and practically, sensibly, consciously, voluntarily we can practice this oneness, and we can do it in our life. Many of our Swamis have done it. I will tell you one incident from our own life of our own Ramakrishna Math Swamiji. He was not Vivekananda. We should not think that Vivekananda level Swamis only can do that. Even Swamis who were below, they could experience this. I joined at the Ramakrishna Math Khetri. Before me there was a Swami, I am forgetting his monastic name. His name was Vimal Maharaj. They used to call him and tell, hey Swamiji Paramahamsa, he is a Paramahamsa. And one Swami with whom I was living when I joined in Khetri, that Swami told, one day I had gone to flood relief in Bengal. A huge relief work was going on, and this Vimal Maharaj was looking after the flood relief work. Early morning, this other Swami and Vimal Maharaj, they sat on the cycle rickshaw, and the other Swami told me that when we sat on the cycle rickshaw, revered Vimal Maharaj told me, Arey, do you know today what I had an experience of? This Swami asked, what did you experience? He told, the whole range of people collected here who are suffering from the effects of damages of flood, I felt myself and they are one. You see, this Advaita Vedanta is not an exclusive property of corporate people or a high elite people of spiritual life. Everybody can have it. So Vivekananda made this a universal property so that everybody can experience, and he said we must come to that aspect for the future development of our civilization and for the global development. If this idea of oneness can be preached, this is going to bring a tremendous feeling of unity in the whole world, and this is the only solution, panacea for the divisive forces that are working in the world. And through this spiritual experience, Vivekananda verified that the oneness experience which he got from his Guru by his divine touch, the touch of oneness, and which he has gained through his own spiritual sadhana, is true. But Sri Ramakrishna warned him, do not spend before accumulating wealth. So Swami Vivekananda had to save this feeling of oneness, but now and then, again and again, this feeling of oneness will come back in his life in the form of sympathy, compassion, feeling for poor, needy, and different types of situations where he will feel oneness with the people, and automatically his feeling of oneness will make him help people. There is a funny story that one of his friends who had taken to immoral ways and whom Swami Vivekananda was avoiding during his spiritual practices, he was in a very dire situation of poverty. So one day he came to a place where Swami Vivekananda was sitting. So on those days, one important legal court case was going on. Legal things were being discussed in the newspapers. So when this young friend of Vivekananda came, who had taken to immoral ways, he also started mentioning about the case that is going on between one temple and somebody else. Then just for fun, understanding that the friend is in financial stress, Vivekananda, who was a student of law, he told, if I am the lawyer or advocate for the temple, I am going to argue like this. So he went on telling different arguments in favor of the temple trust. And his friend went on noting down all the points. Next day he went to the temple officers and he told, yesterday I met one young brilliant man, Narendranath, who is very intelligent, our friend. He told, these are all the arguments which if you produce in the court, the temple can win the case. And the temple officers were so overwhelmed with these arguments, they immediately paid Vivekananda's friend, who had taken to immoral ways, but who was in financial distress, 250 rupees in those days, and ultimately the temple people won the case. Then somebody became angry and reported to Vivekananda, see, the friend has cheated you. Very cleverly he has come and he has taken your arguments, went there and got money. Vivekananda laughed and he told, see, that man was in great pain and I also felt the pain and I could not help him because he has taken to immoral ways. But at least I have the satisfaction that in an indirect way, very intelligently, I have solved his financial crisis. Let him lead a good life. Let him have a comfortable life. Let him get some money. If I can be of use to anybody, it is I who is blessed, not the other man. Look at the super range of character and the response and the behavior of Swamiji. How superlative it is. It is very hidden, very concealed, but very beautifully it comes out as feeling for somebody who he has taken to immoral ways, whom Vivekananda did not encourage, but still he had the extraordinary heart, the munificent generosity to help that man, and he did it in this way. This is the sense of feeling of oneness, melting at the suffering and the misery of others. Most of us are so frozen in our own individuality that our heart rarely melts. We are so calculative, as Sri Ramakrishna says, Banya Buddhi Wala. Not that Banyas are bad, we calculative behavior. So this oneness, the feeling of being one with the whole world, though practically it may be little foolish, it appear to be foolish for some time or some people or some particular period, once it is expressed, the infallible power of love will work out magic in the due course of time. So here in this incident, we find Swami Vivekananda trying to find out really whether the feeling of oneness, the spiritual feeling can be transmitted, and he understood it can be given. So now spirituality becomes highly scientific now. Just as you teach science, you make other people scientists, your students can become scientists. Here also there is a demonstrative way of teaching, and you create saints instead of scientists. This is one of the marvelous approach of India. West was creating scientists. We can create saints by touch, by look, by conversation, by mere thinking. And there is another incident which is coming where Sri Ramakrishna gives one of the most thrilling spiritual adventure in the life of spiritual literature. So after this experience, as Swami Vivekananda was slowly developing the spiritual life, tending towards the experience of oneness. And Sri Ramakrishna was slowly approaching the evening of his life. One day evening, suddenly Sri Ramakrishna called Narendranath and asked him and to sit in front of him. And slowly, this Sri Ramakrishna went into deep samadhi. And as Sri Ramakrishna was in deep samadhi, Vivekananda found a tremendous force was coming out of Sri Ramakrishna, entering into the body of Swami Vivekananda, and slowly Swami Vivekananda also merged and became one with Sri Ramakrishna. And he found that uncontrollable and tremendous bursting out, exploding energy was entering his own body, and that he could give a shape to mind of any sadhaka in any way he wants. The entire power of Sri Ramakrishna, the feeling of oneness entered into Swami Vivekananda, and after some time when Swami Vivekananda came back to his senses, he saw Sri Ramakrishna shedding tears. Sri Ramakrishna then told, "The time for me to depart from this world has come. I have become a fakir, Naren. Whatever I had, today I have transferred to you." This is something marvelous, most unprecedented, transferring the entire spiritual power, spiritual knowledge, spiritual experiences to Shishya, just like a mother transfers all the food she has taken to the child in her womb. This is one of the most beautiful Vedantic experience, a spiritual thriller in Indian spiritual literature, that the Guru who has experienced all the knowledge in one shot, just like transferring the bank account from amount of the bank account from one account to another account, Sri Ramakrishna transferred the entire spiritual power, spiritual knowledge, spiritual experience to Swami Vivekananda, and with folded hands he said, "Are Naren, today I have become a fakir. Whatever I had gained, everything I have given to you. Now I am totally a bankrupt." That was a tremendous power surging inside Swami Vivekananda, and Sri Ramakrishna told, "With this power which I have given to you, you will do enormous good for the welfare of humanity." And Swami Vivekananda says, after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, I found that Sri Ramakrishna had put something inside me which made me impossible to sit quiet unless I start doing something for removing the misery of India and the miseries of the humanity. It never allows me to keep quiet. Constantly I am provoked to do something good for the welfare of humanity. So this is the tremendous touch of the great master, the Guru Sparsha, or the Divya Sparsha, which Swami Vivekananda got. And by this, Swami Vivekananda enriched himself and also proved for himself that spirituality can be transferred as we transfer a material from one person to another person. Just like taking an apple, giving to another man, or taking a book and giving to some man who can receive it, this can be transferred. It can come only when you feel that other people and yourself are one. So the unity which is bridging both of us, the unity bridge comes through the Advaita Vedanta feeling of oneness. This is a beautiful experience. One more experience we will take, two more experience we will take and conclude today's, it's now 6:06, today's meditation on Swamiji. Both are very touching, and these are all facts and factors revealing to us that how sensible and really strong and meaningful Indian spiritual life and spiritual incidents and spiritual matters are. These are not at all superfluous things, not at all superstitious things, not at all a matter to be mocked at. Something tremendous. Just because I am not able to do or I am not able to achieve that, it doesn't mean that something that is going above my head is incomprehensible. I should raise myself to the higher levels. Just like a child was told by his father that we are all going to go to moon. And the child was surprised, "Dad, you are going to moon? Then what are you going to do?" "Then we are all going to moon. It's a great great leap in the science, great development progress in the science. It's a great achievement." And the 5-year-old boy asked, "Dad, when you go to moon, can you get me sugar candies?" And the father laughed. "Sugar candies going to moon? No, my child, it is not for getting sugar candies which we can get in the ordinary shop. Then dad going to moon is useless. Dad going to moon is useless, not at all worth doing. It is futile. And Vivekananda says, when we are small children or when we are small child, at the stage of being a small baby, we don't find higher things appealing to our mind. It doesn't make any sense out of it, but doesn't mean that they are nonsense. We don't have the sense to perceive, but they have a sense. X-ray can see things which we cannot perceive. Sri Ramakrishna says, in daytime, just because you cannot see stars, don't say skies are bereft of stars. Wait for the sun to set down. The same eyes will see stars in the sky. It's a beautiful statement, you see. How Sri Ramakrishna puts in such a simple way, in a guileless way. You don't see stars in the sky, doesn't mean that there are no stars. Allow the sun to set down and you will find in the same sky where you are standing with the same eyes, you can see the stars. So this is the beautiful aspect which we have to first hear, think about, and then slowly start practicing in our life. In our own individual life, in our own small share, our own quota of oneness we can give to our country. We need not bother about how others are behaving. What I can do as a follower, as an admirer, as a person who is adoring and worshipping Swami Vivekananda, what is the contribution of oneness I can give to the country as a contribution from my life? So after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, as Swami Vivekananda started wandering, and this tremendous energy of Sri Ramakrishna constantly prodding and provoking him to do something good, somehow try to liberate India from that, so that this tremendous message of Advaita Vedanta can be preached all over, and there will be a bridge between India, the East and the West, and both can benefit through this Advaita Vedanta. Try to bring the feeling of oneness. As Swami Vivekananda was traveling through the India, this idea was constantly bubbling up in his mind. A beautiful incident comes as he was traveling in the different provinces of Rajasthan. Once he comes to a place in Jaipur, where he meets one Hari Singh, Sardar Hari Singh, who was the commander of the Jaipur army, Jaipur Maharaja's commander. And as Swamiji met him and he was in the palace, and Hari Singh was also a Vedanti. Vedanti means Nirakara Sadhaka. He was worshipping formless God, and therefore like the Alwar Maharaja Mangal Singh, who did not believe in image worship, this Hari Singh also told Swamiji, all these images and other things are just man-made, all out of clay and granite stones and painted pictures. But real God is spirit. How can we accept this? God is formless. If it is infinite, he is formless. So Hari Singh was thinking that what he says is more intelligent and more wonderful and just more logical. A very impressive argument he was giving. And as Swami Vivekananda one day was walking through Hari Singh, again Hari Singh started talking about this image worship, claiming that all these images and forms are not real. And at that time, Swami Vivekananda and Hari Singh saw that was the Gokulashtami, Janmashtami day, and there was a big procession. There is a famous Jaipur Govindaji Mandir, Sri Krishna's temple, and in the procession they were beating the drums and playing the Khanjini, and they were singing Jai Nandalala, Jai Gopala, like that. And along with the song, they were finding that 3 or 4 people, they were carrying a huge image of Sri Krishna Nandalala. Seeing that image, suddenly Hari Singh, who awoke to his formless aspect of worship, told Swamiji, see how like a small children without understanding, these people are carrying clay image. It was just made out of clay. A few days before they have painted it, and see, they are all telling this is Krishna, they are worshipping and they are singing bhajans and they are glorifying, putting garlands and flowers. As Swami Vivekananda was listening to this argument, suddenly Vivekananda raised his hand and gave a beating on the shoulders of Hari Singh. And he told, Hari Singh, hey Hari Singh, come on, look at Nandalala now. Oh, what a beautiful incident. Moment Swami Vivekananda touched the body of Hari Singh's eyes became transfixed on the image of Nandalala Sri Krishna, and within few moments there was a dramatic change in the expression of Hari Singh's face, and streams of tears started streaming from the eyes of Hari Singh, and he told, oh, Jai Nandalala, Jai Govinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And for a few minutes, Nandalala could not remove his eyes from the image of Sri Krishna, and this feeling, the touch, the divine touch, evoked spiritual realization that this is not clay. Even there, the spirit is pervading, and that clay also is God. And Sri Ramakrishna gave Krishna consciousness in the clay also, with the eyes open, not in the state of meditation where eyes are closed. And Hari Singh could not believe, could not control, and he went on weeping, and he told Swamiji, what I could not understand reading pages and pages of volumes of books, one touch of yours has given me a spiritual experience. This is amazing, Swamiji. I cannot believe, I cannot control myself. This is the spiritual touch, the touch of spiritual illumination which Swami Vivekananda imparted to Hari Singh. And he told, now I am experiencing Krishna in the clay also. There is no more Krishna. So how beautifully we find that in the life of Swami Vivekananda, the spiritual treasures, the spiritual realizations of our rishis, the spiritual principles and tenets, they come and they get enacted, and Swamiji's life becomes evidence and a proof for us to believe about Indian spirituality. With one more touching incident, I will complete today's meditation on Swamiji. This touching, the feeling of oneness, the divine touch or the touch of oneness, it happened in London. Swami Vivekananda had gone to London. He had invited his brother disciple, Swami Sharadananda, Sharat Maharaj, to come to London so that Vivekananda will be returning to India and Swami Sharadananda can carry on the flag of preaching Vedanta in the West. And Swami Vivekananda's brother Mahendranath Datta also was in London. Swamiji was in the second floor or something, second or third floor, and Swami Sharadananda was in the ground floor. And in those days, Bengal had a lot of mosquitoes like Kerala. Kerala had a lot of filaria cases. Bengal had malarial, this fever spreading all over, and it was a big menace. So people used to suffer from malaria frequently. So when Sharadanandji came to London, he was struck with malarial fever and he was down on bed for a few days. So one day evening, suddenly Swami Sharadananda
Swamiji's voice is gone.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? You're able to hear?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So some force, a power came and entered Swami Sharadananda's legs through his toes. It came, it went up to the knee level and went out. After a few seconds, again the force came, entered through the toes, came up to thighs and went out. Third time it came up to the hip level, and fourth time as it came up to the heart, suddenly Swami Sharadananda found that this force which has come from outside and the force which was in his body suffering malaria, both had a tremendous combat, a fight, and the force which came from outside drove out the force which was in his body, and Swami Sharadananda collapsed on his bed, sweating profusely, and he became tired. And he was just lying on the bed looking at the ceiling when suddenly he heard a knock on the door. With great difficulty, Swami Sharadananda, with the malarial fever hangover, went and opened the door, and Swami Vivekananda was standing majestically smiling, telling, "Are Sharat, Sharadananda, has not malarial fever left you? See how I have given a command and I told malaria, get out from Swami Sharadananda, and the malarial fever has gone out of you." And Swami Sharadananda found at that moment that the force which came from outside was Swami Vivekananda's spiritual power, came inside his body, threw the malarial fever out, and Swami Sharadananda became as usual as he was previously. With tremendous emotion and tears in his eyes, Swami Sharadananda fell flat at the feet of Swami Vivekananda, and he told, "Brother, you have cured my body, malarial fever has left me, temperature has become normal. Why don't you cure my mind also now?" What a beautiful statement. Swami Vivekananda lifted him, hugged him, patted on him on his back, and he told, "Hey, don't make all this mischief. Your mind is already cured by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The body I cured." So here you find sitting in one floor, entering into the body of another man through his power, This all signifies the feeling of tremendous oneness in this universe. Swami Vivekananda says Western hemisphere, the Western countries are waiting for this magic message of Vedanta, oneness of the universe. Science is coming to that. Everything is atoms or everything is protons, neutrons or something. So this oneness, science and West is waiting, and if it can be enacted on the day-to-day life, the whole life will become a tremendous spiritual drama of love, benediction and unending bliss. Each man will be feeling for others, and slowly it will come. Now it looks like a far-fetched dream, but dreams come true. And when that comes, then we can call this is Satya Yuga. And Swami Vivekananda cured Swami Shardananda's malarial fever. It's a tremendous fact. And he says, this is how the Advaita Vedanta puts its prana shakti into another man. And through the power of oneness, your whole body has been cured. Mind also can be cured. How? That is another spiritual thriller episode, which we will see in the next meeting. How Swami Vivekananda cured the mind of a Western beautiful opera singer, Madam Emma Calvé, who was almost on the verge of suicide, and put her again on the path to unending joy and bliss.